This is Matthew Perry, and when he died in 2023 from a drug overdose, the entire world took notice. And this is Matthew Chesson. When he died a few years ago from a drug overdose, the world continued on as usual, and nobody took notice except his loved ones and those in his family who felt the deep impact. What's the difference between Matthew Perry and Matthew Chesson? Well, there they are, side by side. And if you were somebody who didn't know anything and you just saw a picture of these people, you would probably instantly recognize Matthew Perry if you were someone who lived in Western society as a popular actor. But if you saw Matthew Chesson, you'd be like, well, who is that dude? You know what I mean? And that is what the difference is. Both died from drug overdoses. One, Matthew Perry, the entire Los Angeles Police Department and the Drug Enforcement Agency took action to take down any and everybody who was involved with the narcotics that found its way into Matthew Perry's system, which was ketamine, and he lost his life. 2 doctors, a couple other individuals, and the person that they call the ketamine queen of Hollywood were all arrested, indicted, and charged. The ketamine queen just was recently sentenced, and we're going to talk about her in a minute. But I just wanted to show you a side-by-side analysis. When Matthew Chesson died, the coroner just marked it off as a drug overdose and moved on. We even had questions about where he got the drugs from and if, in fact, the drugs were given to him on purpose. There was no investigation. There was nothing. Let me propose to you right now that today in America, there are going to be hundreds of people who overdose and some who even die from drug overdoses, and nothing's going to happen. Every day in America, every year in America, tens of thousands of people die from drug overdoses, and absolutely no investigation happens because the average person who dies from a drug overdose in America doesn't have the notoriety and Hollywood backing of a person like Matthew Perry. And what happened to Matthew Perry is really sad and unfortunate, and it should not happen to anybody. But when we talk about a disparity in differences, the people like Matthew Perry, when something happens to them, Hollywood is demanding justice. But when somebody like Matthew Chesson dies, the world continues on. You know what the best part is? Is that God loved Matthew Perry and Matthew Chesson the exact same, even though the world only cared about one and disregarded the other as just an average person who dies from an overdose, which is pathetic, in my opinion. Welcome to the Pen and the Shank, the most unusual and unique crime and prison channel experience on YouTube. If you're looking to get your daily dose of the most unusual and unique crime stories out there, you found the right place. But this story is going to hit home personally. And as you watch it, you're probably going to hear a lot of emotion from me because I'm comparing the death of my brother, Matthew Chesson, rest in peace, to the death of Matthew Perry, also rest in peace, who is a star, but one received justice and the other didn't. And we do have a 2-tiered justice system. And if you're popular in Hollywood, they'll take notice. But if you're just a regular average day person like my brother Matthew, they'll barely bat an eye. Let's get into this video. Matthew Perry, the ever so enormous star of the popular sitcom called Friends. And chances are, if you're watching this video, you either watch Friends at some point or another, or you absolutely love Friends and you binge watch it to this very day. I'm on the opposite end of that spectrum. And I have a story that I'm going to tell about the TV show Friends that directly relates to me while I was in prison. I had a cellmate whose name was Jeremy. Also, God bless him, from what I understand, he passed away from also a drug overdose, but he was a bodybuilder in prison with me, and we were cellmates, and he wanted to watch Friends one day, and I wanted to watch Dragon Ball Z, and we almost got into a knockdown fight behind what was going to be on that TV. In the end, cooler heads prevailed, but he was a big time fan of the TV show Friends. He loved watching Friends. I absolutely couldn't stand the TV show Friends. I'd much rather watch Goku and Vegeta fight on Dragon Ball Z. But that's just my opinion, and that's not what this is about. This is the ketamine queen of Hollywood, and she has recently been convicted and sentenced for the death of Matthew Perry. She was the final domino in the entire domino line that needed to fall for this case to be completely absolved and dealt with, and for Matthew Perry's family to get their, peace and their justice so that they can move on with their lives and begin to heal. You know what I mean? I'm sure they went through a mourning stage where they grieved and everything, but now they can actually take the time to move on, because the justice is served and the ketamine queen got 15 years. The ketamine queen, look at her right here. She got 15 years in prison. I'm about to read you the article right now. This is coming from NBC News, and it's ketamine queen sentenced to 15 years in Matthew Perry overdose death. Jasveen Sangha, right here, pleaded guilty in September to 5 federal charges. So she's been sitting, if you know anything about guilty pleas, often, or being found guilty in a criminal trial, often once the guilty verdict is read or you plead guilty, there's a sentencing phase that the court goes through. All the professionals and all the witnesses and all the evidence is presented so they can consider how much time they should give a person. So from September of last year to now in 2026, they did the investigation phase on how they was going to sentence Jasveen Sangha. And the Los Angeles woman who pleaded guilty to illegally selling the ketamine that killed Friends actor Matthew Perry was sentenced to 15 years behind bars and 3 years supervised release on Wednesday. That means after she does the 15, she's got to do 3 extra years on paper. Parole. Jasveen Sangha, known to her drug customers as the ketamine queen, pleaded guilty last fall to 5 federal charges related to Perry's overdose and the death of his 2023 overdose. She has been in federal custody since she was arrested in August of 2024. In remarks to the courtroom, Sangha lamented her poor choices and I quote, horrible decisions that ultimately proved tragic. I question if this woman's really sorry, because this is her quote, her horrible decisions that ultimately proved tragic. That was her words. Is she considering all the other people that her product found its way into their veins and into their system and they're also dead? She probably doesn't care. She cares about this one because Matthew Perry, but she's the ketamine queen of Hollywood. So she obviously, there's pictures of her with Charlie Sheen and other people. And he was using narcotics. We all know that. And a lot of people in Hollywood use narcotics. And so, that's what she's saying. Is she repentant and truly sorry? I don't know. Time will tell. She said, I pray for forgiveness every day. Thank you for giving me the harshest reality check of my life. Thank you for taking me out of the equation. Nah, Jasveen, you ain't taking out the equation. Taking out the equation for true justice would to give you a hot shot of ketamine until you breathe your last breath. That is what justice really looks like. You are being shown mercy and grace. You know what I mean? Not justice, because true justice is an eye for an eye, a tooth for a tooth, a life for a life. That's old school justice. And that's how a lot of societies still do it to this day. We live in the West, where the worst people in the world get the benefit of the doubt to live again after they took someone else's life. Anyway, calm down. Dateline correspondent Keith Morrison, Perry's stepfather, praised the judge for delivering a highly reasoned sentence, adding, we miss Matthew dreadfully, of course, and I feel badly for the perpetrator here as well. Nobody won today. Listen, man, I respect it too. And listen, often I feel, bad for the way a perpetrator such as Jasveen Sangha grew up. Probably she was around drugs. Probably she had a rough upbringing, whatever. We all been through I've been through a rough upbringing. That's why they put my butt in prison. And I did almost 10 total years of my entire life. My brother been to juvenile detention. He been to jail. We pay consequences, but we don't get to make excuses when we make bad decisions and punishment is due. In March 2025, federal prosecutors requested a prison sentence of 180 months or 15 years, followed by 3 years supervised release. In the 24-document page, U.S. attorneys for the Central District of California called Sangha a drug dealer who sold drugs that hurt people. No duh. When she learned she had sold the drugs that caused Perry's death, the prosecutors wrote she didn't care and kept selling. This woman, after Matthew Perry dies in 2023 from using her product, continues to sell narcotics even after he's dead. Does that show any sign of remorse or repentance? Hell nah. This fool continued to slang to let somebody else die. She just knew her product took someone's life, but she didn't care. She continued to sell. Man, you get more than 15 years in the feds, man. Listen, look, in the feds, she probably got to do the 85% of it at least, but that ain't enough. And when you find out something else she did, there was rumors that while she was in prison, she's been planning to make a book deal to capitalize on Matthew Perry's death. When this woman gets out of prison, she's probably going to write a book. And if you buy her book to support her and give her and make her another millionaire so she can slang and peddle the tragedy of Matthew Perry, there needs to be something that's on the conviction that says any dollar she makes off the name Matthew Perry goes directly to the victim's family or to some kind of fund where other victims like Matthew Chesson, my brother, can be helped for the tragedies that people like Jasveen Sangha, peddled the community with their narcotics. You know what I mean? And listen, Matthew Perry is not completely innocent in this neither. He's a victim, but he's also a victim of his own devices. He's a victim of his own addictions. My brother was a victim of his own addictions. And ultimately, it cost him his life. My brother was warned time and time again, quit using narcotics, quit using drugs, get help, go in rehab. You know what I mean? Things were presented to him that he had an opportunity to make better choices, but the struggle was just too hard. The monkey on his back, so to speak, the demon on his back was hard to shake. And sometimes that happens, man. That's why I know I'm blessed, things could have happened to me. I'm here today because of the grace of God. Sangha's actions show a cold, callous, and disregard for life. She chose profits over people, and her actions have caused immense pain to the victims' families and loved ones, the prosecutors added. In a 16-page response, Sangha's defense lawyers insisted she has accepted responsibility for serious criminal conduct and asked the court to impose a sentence of time served. She does not minimize that conduct or the gravity of the consequences charged in this case. Mark J. Garvos and Alexander Kazarian wrote in their sentencing memorandum. Perry, 54, was found face down in the heated end of his pool at his home in the Pacific Palisades neighborhood of Los Angeles. On October 28, 2023, he was pronounced dead at the scene. The Los Angeles County Medical Examiner officer later attributed his death to an accidental overdose of ketamine, a hallucinogenic anesthetic that in recent years has gained popularity as an off-label, unrelated treatment for depression. Man, they were using ketamine back when I was coming up. Perry, an Emmy-nominated actor best known for playing the sarcastic Chandler Bing on Friends, spoke candidly about his struggles with drug and alcohol addiction throughout his adult life. He chronicled some of those experiences in his 2022 memoir, Friends, Lovers, and The Big Terrible Thing. The Big Terrible Thing's probably his addiction. I ain't never read his book. In his final months, he had been undergoing ketamine infusion therapy to treat depression and anxiety, but he sought unsupervised doses, developing a dependence on the drug that prosecutors said was spiraling out of control. We see that happen with all addicts. They spiral out of control. And that's the thing with some of these recommended narcotics that they give, such as ketamine, to help with depression and anxiety, or these narcotics that the doctors give that you can, that pharmaceutical companies make and peddle. Oh man, it gets me so mad, y'all, that the narcotic companies, the pharmaceutical companies can get away with this. El Chapo is sitting in federal prison for the rest of his life, and he's probably the only inmate who's in what we call range 13. And it's at the Supermax prison in Colorado, ADX Florence. There's a section of the prison, and I did a video on, I'll post it in the description, where only 3 people in the history of the world have made it to range 13. It's more exclusive than anything you can imagine. You have a better shot at sitting on top of the penthouse on the best place in Dubai than you do of making it to range 13. Only 3 people have ever been in range 13. And right now, the only person that's in there is, El Chapo. Well, you know what? What about the pharmaceutical companies that got all the power to make me shut up even? You know what I mean? Because they got so much money and prestige and power. You know what I mean? They should be in range 13, but they constantly get away with it. You know what I mean? And these Hollywood actors support them. They back them. They bring them on their shows. These doctors who are peddling their dope to them. You know what I mean? There are good doctors, but there are bad doctors. There's good teachers, but there are bad teachers. There's good police officers, but there are bad police officers. There's good convicts, and there are bad convicts. You see what I mean? You see where I'm going with this, man? Sangha, the ketamine queen, worked with a man named Eric Fleming to give ketamine to Perry. The U.S. attorneys behind the case have said, citing her plea agreement, the month Perry died, Sangha, the ketamine queen, and Fleming sold him 51 vials of ketamine. 51 vials of ketamine. That's like stocking up, you know what I mean, on canned corn and anchovies for the apocalypse. You got to stock up on ketamine. That's what Matthew Perry was doing. I ain't exaggerating. I ain't being disrespectful. Dude was stockpiling on ketamine because he couldn't. He had to have his fix. Like I have to have a cup of coffee in the morning. My man had to have shots of ketamine throughout the day, and provided them to Kenneth Uwamasa. Uwamasa. These are other people who were arrested because there were 5 people arrested. You know what I mean, with the ketamine queen. This was his live-in personal assistant, according to prosecutors. Uwamasa reportedly injected Perry with the ketamine leading up to his fatal overdose, including at least 3 shots on the day he died, prosecutors said. Sangha, ketamine queen, who lived in North Hollywood neighborhood, called Fleming on the encrypted messaging application Signal after having learned from breaking news reports that Perry had died, according to prosecutors. Delete all messages. She wasn't sorry. She was trying to cover her tracks. So yeah, 15 years for no credit for time. If you want to know what no credit for time served means, that means for the 2 years that she sat in prison, that's just null and void. She's still going to do the 15. No credit for time. You don't get no credit for time served when you selling narcotics to people and they lose their lives, man. Delete all encrypted messages, man. This is no wonder why she should have got more than 15 years, in my opinion. And I hope she can change. I hope she's repentant. I always hope the best for even the worst people. But that does not mean they get to escape justice and consequence. Fleming pleaded guilty in August 2024 to 1 count of conspiracy to distribute ketamine. This was the doctor she was getting her fixes, her dope from. And one count of distribution of ketamine resulting in a death. Uwamasa pleaded guilty the same month to 1 count of conspiracy to distribute ketamine causing the death. He's the one who was injecting Perry. There are rumors that Perry told him, give me the best shot you can ever give. And Perry wanted a high dose of it. And Uwamasa, he gave him a high dose of it. I'm assuming Uwamasa is Japanese. If anybody knows, share in the comment. The 2 men are scheduled to be sentenced this month. The ketamine queen, a dual citizen of the U.S. and the U.K., pleaded guilty to 1 count of maintaining a drug-involved premises, 3 counts of distribution of ketamine, and 1 count of distribution of ketamine resulting in a death or serious bodily injury. She admitting having used her home to store, package, and distribute narcotics, including ketamine and methamphetamine, since at least 2019, longer than that. Sangha has also admitted selling 4 vials of ketamine to a victim identified by prosecutors as Cody McLaury in August 2019. McLaury died hours later from a drug overdose. I'm reacting to this as I read it. I did not know that she was also admitted to selling, narcotics to another man named Cody McLaury. She admitted it, but there's no conviction. I don't know if she was convicted just for Matthew Perry or she was also convicted for Cody McLaury. I'm going to look for his picture, his face, and I'm going to put it right here if I find it. If not, that means I didn't find it. But he's just like my brother. Who knows who he is? Who cares, right? Hollywood's not in an uproar. Everybody's not crying and complaining and telling you need to be concerned about what happened to Matthew Perry. They're not concerned what happened to, Cody McLaury. Y'all, justice isn't justice equally for everybody, and it's been that way our whole lives. But we still have to believe in the justice system. I still have to believe in the justice system because it's all we got. You know what I mean? We have to issue some form of justice. And sometimes even the best justice systems get it wrong. They got it right. The ketamine queen's going to prison. What do you think? Do you think the ketamine queen should be in prison? I think she should be in prison. I think 15 years is not a harsh enough sentence. I think she should have got 25 years. That's what I think. 25 years in the feds. And I don't know, man. What do y'all think? Share in the comments. Was 15 years too light? With 3 years of parole when she gets out, at least. I think about my brother often, y'all. And when I read the story of this case, it really hit home because I miss my brother all the time. And if you're struggling with narcotics, you should seek help. We all need something we need help on with, y'all. And I'm sorry that Matthew Perry lost his life. Listen, I'm not a fan. I'm not a fan of Matthew Perry. I'm not a fan of the TV shows that he made. It's just not my style. But I am a fan of justice. And I am sympathetic to what he went through with his anxiety and his depression, because this stuff is real. And that's why I'm always telling people, man, get help. Get help. Stop, man, because you don't recognize the ripple effect. Matthew Perry was so ensnared by his addiction, he didn't realize the ripple effect it would have and the hearts it would break with his father and his mother and his stepmother and his fans. My brother was so ensnared with his addiction that he didn't have time to consider that he has 2 children that now have to live their life without their father. You can't get more tragic than that. That's sad. And I remember telling him, man, Matt, think about, and I would tell him his daughter's name. Think about her. Think about your son. And I would share these things with him. And I would say, man, you don't want to make this bad choice, because the implications are heavy. And, often nobody wants to hear what I got to say. But I'm the man, I'm the person that's speaking to you right now, who've been through hell and changed his life. I live a better life. I have moral compass that guides me. I make good decisions. Am I perfect? Do I make them right all the time? Absolutely not. But I try to be a person in life who's fair and just and make sound decisions. And I base them off a moral compass that guides me. Rest in peace, Matt. I miss you, brother. I love you. And I'm sorry that you had to lose your life. And I'm sorry that there's no justice for your case. I'm sorry that the Jefferson Parish Police Department didn't investigate your murder or your death and overdose to see what happened. I even heard there was video footage. Man, give me a like and subscribe, y'all. This video hit home. I know there's others who are watching this, man. You might be struggling with addiction, man. Please get help. You might know somebody who does, man. Reach out to somebody. Reach out to me, man. You can send me an email. I'm working on getting some kind of mentorships going, and eventually we'll have that for the channel. I'm trying to figure this technology thing out. That's the thing that's got me slowest, but bear with me, y'all. We got some good stuff coming, man. Give me a like and subscribe. Share in the comments. Hype this video, and go watch some more videos. It helps the channel.